Hello, today I'm having the worst ever technical problem. And so we're talking about it is Monday Motivation Day. I'm on the third computer I have tried, so I'm hoping this will be okay. I'm hoping that you are getting this. Good. So, I've received a lot of emails. I don't know, everybody seems to be around the same time for my 100-day email series. If you're not getting the 100-day email series, please make sure you sign up for it because it's good. People are loving it. And just at the moment, I seem to be getting a lot of replies from you about what have you not trained because you're not sure how to train it. And is there anything in particular that you've wanted to train but you've stopped yourself from doing it because you're not sure about how to do it and you don't want to ruin your horse? That was the question I asked you. So do you ever not train something because you're worried that you're going to ruin your horse? And I had a ton of replies and some really similar ones actually, with people saying that one of the most common things people don't train are quite simple things, but it's when they've recognized that they've got a hole in their training. So I had a couple yesterday that said they both wanted to train flying changes, but what was happening was that their horses were only changing in front and not behind. And so they've realized there's something missing. They've realized they're not getting something right, and they didn't want to continue trying to train that because they knew that it was only going to get worse. So if the horse is only changing in front and not behind, you haven't got independent hindquarter control. And so it's really important that you have that before you start teaching flying changes, because if the horse is just changing in the front, you actually could, run the risk of developing a horse that's quite comfortable going disunited. And the reason the horse only changes in front and not behind is that the change itself actually comes from behind. So if you can move the horse's hindquarters independently of the shoulders, then you're more likely to get the change, because the change originates from the back end of the horse. And a horse is very unlikely just to change behind. So when you see horses fail to pick up a flying change properly or disunite in the flying change, what happens is they change in front and not behind. So let's say we're cantering left and we want to do a flying change to the right. The shoulders will change to the right lead and the hindquarters will stay cantering on the left lead, and that leads to a disunited canter. Now, what's happened with that horse is the rider's throwing the shoulders over to the new lead, but the hindquarters haven't changed. If that rider could have, rather than taking control of the shoulders, could have just taken control of the hindquarters, or could have spoken to the hindquarters independently of the shoulders, then they could have cued the hindquarters to make that change and engagement, and the horse would have picked up the new lead correctly. It's really, really unusual to see a horse only changing behind. I've only seen it once, and the horse, I think, had the back problem. But so yeah, on a sound horse, it's most unlikely. If you can get the back end to change, the front end will change with it. So personally, I don't teach flying changes until I have independent hindquarter control. And so it means that you've got a hole in your training if you're trying to teach something like flying changes and you're only changing the front end, not the back end of the horse. So what you could do is go back and teach hindquarter control. But before you do that, if you check down in the module, it will show you what the prerequisites are to teach hindquarter control. And the first thing you'll find there is shoulder control. So the reason you need shoulder control before you can take independent control of the hindquarters is you've got to be able to stop something moving. So the horse, we can talk to the front end and the back end of the horse. But if we then say, okay, now I just want the back end to move, what's going to happen is they're both going to move together. So what we need to be able to do is stop one moving. So we need to be able to stop the shoulders moving so that we can move the hindquarters around that. Or we need to be able to stop the hindquarters moving so we can move the shoulders around that. Now, I prefer to start with the shoulder control, mostly because that's what the horse will do in the wild. Now, if you watch a horse in the paddock, if they change direction, they move their head and then their shoulders follow their head. If you watch some trainers and some people doing groundwork, especially sort of natural horsemanship type people, what you'll find, just look at it next time you see it, what you'll quite often see is that when they change direction on the ground, the horse's shoulders and head and neck stay much the same, but the hindquarters move around that. So if you look at where the horse's feet are moving, which is the important thing, where the feet are moving, you'll see more movement in the hindquarters than in the shoulders. So if you watch me change direction on a young horse, you'll see the eyes move, the head move, the neck, and the shoulders going with it. So you'll get more movement in the front end and the shoulders and the front feet, and less movement in the hind feet. The reason I do it like that is because it's easier and more natural for the horse to move its shoulders around its hindquarters than it is to move its hindquarters around its shoulders. And if you think about that with the horses when they do learn their independent hindquarter control, those big steps they take where they disengage their hindquarters is quite hard work on their hindquarters, on their hips. It's quite hard work to step across like that to disengage your hindquarters. So I prefer to leave that until the horse is a bit stronger and is more so flexible and supple as well in its shoulders. So by taking control of the shoulders first, it makes it easier for the horse, but we can't separate the hindquarters from the forequarters until we can stop one of those moving. So we can stop the shoulders moving, then we can say, okay, now I can stop the shoulders moving. Now I'm going to talk to the hindquarter, get that to move, and which I teach off the rein. And the horse will say, oh, okay, well, you're moving something else, you're asking something else to move, but you're telling my shoulders not to move, so it'll try the hindquarters. And that the horse will pick that up quite quickly. And what that means is then when you're, let's say you're cantering around to the left, what you could do is you pick up your right rein and move the hindquarters, and that way you can engage the opposite rein. So horses work like that with the diagonal. So if I'm riding a left-hand circle, let's say, the right rein is keeping the left hindquarter engaged. So if I pick up the left rein, I can move the hindquarters to the right, which will engage the right hindquarter. So I can do that flying change from one leg to the other off my rein without the shoulders having to move at all. So that was what I wanted to talk to you about today, really, was what is it that stops us teaching things that we'd like to teach our horse? So I'd like my horse to know flying changes, but I've been too scared to teach it because I don't want to muck it up. And quite often it's as simple as that. It's just that we're not quite sure exactly what the combination of things is we need to teach that next step. And that, of course, is why I developed the online training system, is to give you guys those actual steps so that you can build on one thing after the other and you can get where it is you want to go in that step-by-step way, so that your horse doesn't end up sort of knowing higgledy-piggledy bits and then you go out and say, right, now we're going to do flying changes, and you're like, I can't do that because I haven't got that independent hindquarter control and shoulder control. I can't stop my shoulders moving, therefore I'm going to fail at that. So by building up, you also build up your confidence because you know what's required of the next step, and you build up your horse's confidence because you've never overstretched that. You've never asked more of the horse than the horse is capable of providing. It might mean the horse has to look for an answer, might not know it immediately. We wouldn't be learning things if we already knew them. Of course, your horse is going to look for answers. Your horse is going to make mistakes. Your horse might even start a little bit confused to start with. That there's a big difference between being confused at the beginning of the lesson and then learning the lesson. It is to be confused and frustrated over, you know, an hour of training or weeks or months or years, as some horses are. Don't be so scared of confusion that you can't teach anything new, because every time you go to teach something new, your horse is going to go, oh, I know that, because your horse is going to respond immediately with something it does know. It's not going to respond immediately with a new response. It's going to try a response that's worked in the past. you know, the horse develops this sort of shopping list of possible responses. So it's going to try something that's worked before, and if that doesn't work, then it'll try something else. But that those first few minutes, yes, the horse is going to be a little confused because what used to work now doesn't work. The pressure might be completely different, but as far as the horse is concerned, there's pressure there. So the horse is looking for an answer to relieve that pressure. So what I would like you to do for me is in the comments, just leave me a comment about something that you haven't taught because you've been worried about mucking it up. You know, it's something I hear so often. I was going to teach this, but I don't know how. I didn't want to ruin him. I didn't want to ruin him, you know. And I think that if we can just sort out some really nice, simple steps for you for those most common things that you didn't want to ruin by starting to teach, then it'll make it much easier for you to go out and actually achieve something and get that done. And sometimes, or more often than not, it is just a matter of breaking it down in the right way for you and for your horse and making a start on it. So leave me examples of things that you haven't wanted to ruin, haven't wanted to teach because you've been worried about ruining your horse, and we'll see if we can address some of those this week. And I'll see you tomorrow with training from inside the training, and hopefully we can answer a couple of your questions. All right, bye.